Thank you very much, Dr. Rodin, for your comments and for your commitment to post-harvest loss reduction issues. And I also want to thank you and Rockefeller Foundation for very generous support to this Congress, which has made it possible for us to have a large number of participants from developing countries to join us. So at this stage, I'll invite Mr. Gustafson to make his remarks on behalf of FAO.
Thank you, Pradeep. I knew I was going to come last, so it makes it doubly difficult, I think, first to say something meaningful to an audience of experts on the topic, and also not to repeat what such a distinguished panel has already said. But let me start out by saying how delighted we are to be here and to welcome you on behalf of FAO to the conference. It's a real pleasure for us to be here and to have quite a few FAO staff participating, and to speak not only about our own work, but in particular our work with others who are here in the room. We're very grateful for the work of University of Illinois on this and the ADM Institute. It's a long-standing topic, of course, for us as it is for University of Illinois, and we're delighted to have this light again shown on this hugely important topic. Many of you, maybe most of you, in fact, as I say, are experts on the topic and have been working in this field for a long time. And I know in my own case, every place I've lived, post-harvest losses has been a big issue. But for the rest of the world and for the public at large, post-harvest losses and food loss and waste has not been a very big topic for a long time. It was a much bigger topic in the 70s and early 80s, as Ertharin Cousin mentioned, even 74, a commitment. But then went out, I think, of attention, and now has come back. And I think this is a really hopeful sign, and I'd like to talk about that a little bit, looking at it a bit, not as an expert, let's say, as you who are here, but looking at why food loss and waste is such a big topic these days. And I think it's a very interesting and important issue, I think, to look at. The 2011 report, as has been mentioned, I think got significant attention on this, but it's been a problem for a really long time. And we're certainly not starting from scratch. There's been a lot of research on it. There was a lot of work earlier, but a lot of that work didn't pay off. And I think it was because we didn't address the complexity of the issue in the way that now we increasingly recognize. We saw it more in terms of kind of technology, I think. That's something that obviously farmers would take up, particularly on the storage and other technology issues. And in fact, a lot of farmers weren't able to take it up for a variety of reasons. But we know a lot more now, but we have a lot more to learn, and we have a lot of change to implement in order to make the impact that all of us have been speaking about. But as has been mentioned, food loss and waste isn't an accident. It comes out as an integral part of the food systems, as a consequence of the way they function, with aspects that are economic, technical, cultural, human behavior, lack of investments, problems with management. There's really a multitude of dimensions to the problem, and they have to be addressed in ways that target each of those aspects on technical, social, cultural, profitability, equity, grounds, including gender, as Ertharin Cousin mentioned, that is essential. So knowing that, why then is it, and I would say kind of a groundswell. It's a real popular topic among people who would not normally be interested in this. And I think, as Dr. Easter mentioned, 2008 and the food price crisis certainly is a big part of that, that it looked like food production itself, or sort of food supply, was not a very big issue. It had gone down in terms of funding. Governments were not taking it seriously, and it looked like we were sort of on a path to satisfying, although with huge inequality still and so on. But 2008 was, in fact, really a wake-up call. But I think beyond that, there are two maybe main areas that I would like to highlight. First is this recognition, again, as some of the other panelists have pointed out, that the solutions have to encompass lots of different players. And this we didn't, I think, appreciate, let's say, in the 70s and 80s. You have to involve private sector, you have to involve civil society, you have to involve markets. There is a cultural and behavioral element to it, and these complex problems require solutions that address the complexity. I think from FAO's side, we don't deal with any problems that are not complex. And we always say this, that for all of these problems, we need to engage the stakeholders, from governments, from private sector, from non-state actors, civil society, and so on. But in this case, it really is the case. Food banks have a role, consumers have a role, producers have a role, farmers' organizations has a role, ADM has a role, processors. You really cannot address this unless the entire gamut of actors all the way along the value chain are engaged. The second aspect, I think, that is really very interesting in October 2015 is this recognition that industrialized and developing countries are in this together and both have a role to play. This is really at the heart of the Sustainable Development Goals that were endorsed last month in New York, and it applies exceptionally well to food loss and waste. From that 2011 study, we know that the per capita loss in developing countries is somewhere between 6 and 11 kilos per capita. But the food waste in industrialized countries is somewhere between 95 and 115 kilos. And of course, there are more capita, right? There are more people in developing countries, so that the loss on both sides is roughly the same in total quantity. But you have to address this problem globally in the sense of the real globe, not just in the sense of global sectors. And this is, I think, really something that we haven't seen before. If I could just digress for a second, we were talking before the start of the session with Dr. Rodin about her really excellent book on resilience, if I could put in a plug for it. And the interesting thing, similarly, resilience is not just about northern Kenya drought poor communities. It's also about how big companies in New York dealt with Hurricane Sandy and how they were engaged with supermarkets, were engaged with the community. There's a supermarket, IKEA was another one that did really well. It's not an issue. Resilience is not an issue for developing countries. Everybody, all countries have a stake, have a lot to learn. Resilience is an issue across the board, and food loss and waste is a similar issue. It's a topic that affects everybody one way or another, and in order to make progress, everybody has to be engaged. FAO has 194 member countries. Each country has the same voice, same vote, but genuinely, they all have, each of them, an equal responsibility in this. And this is something I think we always kind of talked about in a rhetorical sense, but these days I think it really is taking off, and I think that food loss and waste is an excellent example of this, and I think it is really quite a hopeful message. We've seen this in terms of this global action, not only looking across actors, but looking globally across countries. The Secretary General of the UN in his Zero Hunger Challenge included food loss and waste as one of the 5 pillars. The Malabo Declaration, which comes out of the Africa Union in 2014, that updated the African countries' commitment on agriculture and their investment in agriculture and food security and nutrition, also highlighted food loss and waste, post-harvest losses. The G20 countries, the agriculture ministers' final communique last May in Turkey. Also, as many of you know, some of you probably had a hand in that, highlighted food loss and waste. From FAO's side, we have a very interesting initiative, in addition, let's say, to the normal work with the private sector called Save Food, the global initiative together with UNEP, and around 400 private sector companies. The packaging industry, very interested in this. Food banks, very interested in this. Governments, very interested. It really is, I think, one of our best examples of this multi-stakeholder partnership. For us, of course, it's from FAO's point of view, always a high priority to get together, share knowledge, new ideas, look at the science, what's happening, who's doing what, expanding the knowledge base, expanding the spread of that knowledge, and we see this conference as just an ideal venue for that kind of thing. I'm sure it'll be very productive. We look forward to getting the feedback from our colleagues who are here, and I hope that the interaction throughout the week remains at this exceptionally high level of interest, and I'm sure it'll be a great success. Thank you very much.